It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. The French President Macron calls for a snap election after the far-right National Party is projected to win 32% of the vote in the European parliamentary elections.
This is a serious and weighty decision, but above all of it is an act of trust.
Also tonight, the wife of Dr. Michael Mosley pays tribute to her wonderful, funny, kind and brilliant husband after a body is found in Greece. A local cameraman tells Sky News he spotted the TV doctor while filming the search and alerted rescue teams.
I'm really sorry for the family. I'm sorry that I'm the one who found it. Sorry.
A key member of Israel's war cabinet resigns, saying Prime Minister Netanyahu is preventing a real victory just a day after a rescue mission frees 4 hostages. Ministers defend Rishi Sunak as the fallout continues from his early departure from D-Day commemorations. Plus, the veteran Normandy newlyweds who upstaged 2 presidents. And we're going to take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30. Good evening. France's Emmanuel Macron has dissolved the National Assembly and called a snap election tonight. The shock announcement was made after hundreds of millions of people went to the polls to vote for the European Parliament. Exit polls show that Marine Le Pen's National Rally Party is set to get more than double the votes of President Macron's party. In a moment, we're going to take a look at how the European Parliament is looking after the elections. But first, an act of trust. This, the announcement by the French president.
This is why, after having carried out the consultations provided by Article 12 of our Constitution, I have decided to give you back the choice of our parliamentary future through a vote. I am therefore dissolving the National Assembly this evening. In a few moments, I will sign the decree calling for legislative elections, which will be held on June 30th for the first round and on July 7th for the second. This is a serious and weighty decision, but above all of it is an act of trust. Confidence in you, my dear compatriots, in the ability of the French people to make the just choice for themselves and for future generations.
Well, our Europe correspondent Adam Parsons joins us live from Brussels. Adam, I'm obviously going to ask you about the impact of these election results on the European Parliament itself. But first, a real shocking decision from President Macron in France.
Astonishing. It's very rare that you get something that comes as such a surprise as this. But Emmanuel Macron has really astonished the whole of European politics tonight. The background to this is that his party, Renaissance, has had an absolute shocker in the European elections. They're projected to get 15, maybe 15.2% of the vote. The Rassemblement National, which is the party led by Jordan Bardella, the young man anointed effectively by Marine Le Pen, they are expected to get around 32%. Now, after that result, Mr. Bardella, he's 28 years old, came out and said Emmanuel Macron has to take notice of this and he should dissolve Parliament. I don't think anybody here, me, the European Parliament, nobody thought Macron was going to react so fast. He did. He said that he was dissolving the National Assembly, that he would be calling legislative elections for 30th of June and then the 7th of July. You have heard what he said, a matter of trust. Well, how about this for trust from the French people? 94% of constituencies across France voted for Jordan Bardella as their preferred candidate. This is a big punt by him, and it's a moment of triumph, frankly, for the Rassemblement National, led here in Europe by Jordan Bardella, but so closely associated with their National Assembly leader, Marine Le Pen. Tonight, she has spoken, and she is joyous.
And Adam, Emmanuel Macron is not the only European leader who is having a bad evening. We're getting some breaking news out of Belgium. What's going on there?
Yeah, Alexander De Croo, the Belgian Prime Minister, has in the past few minutes announced his resignation. He has said that as of tomorrow he will be a resigning Prime Minister. Now, this country, frankly, is no stranger to coalition governments and to Prime Ministers coming and going. But he is going. He had said previously that if he got under 10%, his position would not be tenable. He has. His party, rather like Mr. Macron's, has had a horrible evening. So he is on the way out. I think so much of the oxygen of this is going to be taken up by the news that has come out of Paris and indeed across France, frankly, of the triumph of the National Rally and the apparent anointment of Jordan Bardella and the elections to come. But let us also remember that the European elections will potentially shape the future of this continent. So much talk had been about the resurgence of the far right, but it hasn't quite necessarily worked out. Let's take a look at what's happened. Some projections then that we have had suggest that mainstream and pro-European political parties are going to retain their majority. The centre-right political grouping, the European People's Party, is seen as winning a total of 181 seats. That will give them 25% of the seats in the parliament. Next biggest will be the Socialists and Democrats. They've now looking to have about 135, maybe slightly more seats compared. That's losing about 1% down on the last parliament. The big losers in this election are the Greens. They will have about 53, 54 seats. They will have lost significantly from the last election, about 3% of their seats. Forecast for the Liberal group, Renew Europe, shows them losing 2.5%. And the European Conservatives and Reformists will likely stay at about 10% of deputies. Then there is the one that has attracted so much of the attention, that is Identity and Democracy. That is the far-right group. They're going to pick up probably half a dozen seats, which will could gain, and that will take them to a total of 65. The left experienced just small losses. Right, let me translate what that means to you. It means that the two big parties, the S&D, the EPP, political groupings, those are centre-right, centre-left. They are still going to dominate the middle ground of this parliament, which will be about coalitions. It so often is about informal and formal deals being made among the parties. The fact that the far-right Identity and Democracy group has picked up seats, so has the slightly less far-right ECR group, means that there is more power, as well as, I should say, what are called the non-discrete, the non-aligned. That includes people from the very far-right German Alternative for Germany. So there are going to be more voices from the far-right in this parliament. That's important because, A, it frames issues around big questions, around expansion, Ukraine, climate policy, all of these things. There's also a really important a thing on the ground, and that is that the European Parliament guides the future of who runs the Commission. The President of the European Commission, everyone has heard of Ursula von der Leyen. She wants a second term. She has to be signed off by this place. A few months ago, we thought it would be a rubber stamp job. Now it doesn't look like that because she has enemies in there. Far-right politicians who think that she has gone far too far on climate policy, on migration, and on what's called the Green Deal. She also has angered some French MEPs who seem like they might oppose her on principle. It's going to be hard for her to strike a deal, and it might involve her trying to cozy up to far-right politicians, which is going to infuriate many of her traditional supporters. That one lies ahead, turmoil for the future. The big story coming out of here now is turmoil in the president. Emmanuel Macron, the French president, the man who won the presidency in his 30s with a party he had created, the man for whom, frankly, in politics, normally everything goes so swimmingly, has tonight been forced, been cornered into dissolving his own parliament. And here's one final thought for you. There are plenty of people here. I just spoke to a man called Richard Corbett, used to lead the Labour delegation here in the European Parliament, just spoken to other people there. And they think that this could end up with Marine Le Pen as Prime Minister of France serving underneath Emmanuel Macron. That is an extraordinary concept, an incredible idea, and it is now nearer than ever.
And it would definitely change the nature of the European Union. Adam Parsons, our Europe correspondent. Adam, thank you. After 5 days of searching, the body of doctor and TV presenter Michael Mosley has been found on the Greek island of Symi, where he had been on holiday with his wife Claire. Dr. Claire Mosley issued a statement which said he had collapsed where he couldn't easily be seen, adding that he was a wonderful, funny, kind and brilliant man. Going on to say, we're taking comfort in the fact that he so very nearly made it. Well, Dr. Mosley was holidaying on the island of Symi with his wife. He's understood to have left his wife on St. Nicholas Beach at 1:30 on Wednesday to go for a walk along the coastal path back to their accommodation. Now, it should have taken just under an hour, but he never arrived. He was pictured on CCTV around 2 p.m. in Pedi and on the north side of the marina. After 4 days, on Sunday morning, his body was found. A warning that this report by Sadia Chowdhury from the island of Symi contains pictures of Dr. Mosley being taken away by a recovery team.
It was as if the island of Symi fell silent. A man's body was carefully wrapped before being brought down to the shore. A 50-metre journey he didn't end up making himself. Greek authorities say the body is that of Michael Mosley, a doctor and health reporter who frequented our airwaves for years. Closely following his body, plastic bags holding his belongings, a cap he was wearing, and his backpack. It brought a sombre end to a search that had lasted 4 days and 4 nights, the longest and most unbearable for his family. Today, his wife said, "We're taking comfort in the fact that he so nearly made it. He did an incredible climb, took the wrong route and collapsed where he couldn't be easily seen by the extensive search team. Michael was an adventurous man. It's part of what made him so special. I feel so lucky to have our children and my amazing friends. Most of all, I feel so lucky to have had this life with Michael."
Behind me, that is St. Nicholas Beach, where Dr. Mosley started his journey on Wednesday. He then walked towards Pedi Marina, where he was last seen on CCTV. And police believe he carried on walking north, and you can see just how the terrain changes to become much more rocky.
A helicopter had hovered over the area for hours, but failed to spot anything. In the end, it was this local journalist who caught it on camera.
We were a little bit closer, about 200 meters from the shot. I also zoomed in. It was again shaky. I wasn't 100% sure, but I told them, I think there's something there. And with an iPhone, we took a photo and we zoomed. And there was the body. He was laying down with his hand on his belly, the watch, and he's carrying his bag on the other hand.
It was the end nobody had wanted.
I wish I never got the shot and the person was alive. I'm really sorry for the family.
Dr. Mosley's body has been taken to the island of Rhodes. A post-mortem and formal identification is to follow. Sadia Chowdhury, Sky News, on the island of Symi in Greece.
Dr. Mosley has been called an inspiration and a national treasure by the people who knew him. Sky's Becky Cottrell has been looking back at his life and his career.
A curious investigator, a hero, and quite simply, a very kind man. That's how Dr. Michael Mosley has been described by friends and colleagues. The medic turned media personality became well known for his health advice and diet tips.
Now, there is something of a paradox.
A regular on programmes like This Morning and The One Show, Dr. Mosley was also willing to go to extreme lengths experimenting on his own body. He injected snake venom into his bloodstream and deliberately infested himself with tapeworms for a TV documentary.
Here we go.
But it was his friendly demeanour and ability to make science simple that made him so popular.
I don't think there's anyone in broadcasting like Michael, to be honest. It was the way that he made the complex broke it down, took away all the mystique and mystery about science and made it for everyone to understand, and not just only understand, but to integrate the benefits of it into their lives.
His work had a huge impact. He was a pioneer of the 5-2 diet, which involves restricting calorie intake for 2 days a week.
There you go.
He even credited intermittent fasting and reducing carbohydrates with reversing his type 2 diabetes. Those who knew and admired him have written touching tributes to the author and broadcaster. TV chef Jamie Oliver said, "What a wonderfully sweet, kind and gentle man he was. He did such a lot of good for public health with his TV shows and research." And Professor Alice Roberts, who worked with Dr. Mosley, said, "The fragility of life is so shocking. I've known Michael Mosley for many years, and we met up at Hay Festival just 2 weeks ago. I can't believe he's gone."
It's all a question of what you eat, or rather, what you don't eat.
The 67-year-old was born in what was then Calcutta in India before moving to boarding school in England. His first career was in banking, but it was short-lived, and he decided to enrol in medical school before eventually turning to journalism after qualifying as a doctor. He became an award-winning producer on science shows at the BBC before taking his talents in front of the camera.
We're doing a live show together, which I'm absolutely thrilled about.
He met his wife and fellow doctor Claire at medical school. They have 4 children and have published several books together about the benefits of fasting. Those who worked with him say he really cared about improving the health of the nation.
He had an absolute knack of figuring out what mattered to people and what was important to them. And you can't fake that warmth and generosity of spirit.
And while many questions remain surrounding his death, there is no doubt about the positive impact he had during his life. Becky Cottrell, Sky News.
And Sadia Chowdhury is live on Simi for us. Sadia, do we actually have an update about what happened to Dr. Mosley?
Well, there's been so much speculation over the last few days, but now it's all in the hands of the coroner. She's going to file her report. She was there today. She took some photographs. She was accompanying the body down to the boat. And we await what her findings are. And, of course, part of that will involve a formal identification as well. And so there's a lot yet to come to confirm what happened, and we expect that to come in the next few days. But you know, this is an end nobody wanted. You heard that cameraman that we spoke to talking about how sad he was and what a tragic and devastating time it is for Dr. Mosley's family, an incredible loss to them. But over the last 4 days, this has really captured this island. Everyone's been talking about it. There's been helicopters whirring in the sky. There's been search teams on the ground. And as I say, everyone's been talking about this. It's a small holiday island, but it's something that has been the subject of so many conversations over the last 4 days. And no wonder then that it also attracted lots of journalists and film crews here, both local and international, who came. And at the end, it was a journalist, a cameraman, who found the body.
Sadia Chowdhury with the latest from the island of Simi. Sadia, thank you. Benjamin Netanyahu's Israeli coalition government is in crisis tonight after senior war cabinet minister Benny Gantz resigned, accusing the prime minister of preventing a real victory in Gaza. Netanyahu was already under pressure, despite the successful rescue of 4 hostages yesterday, with Hamas claiming a further 3 captives were killed during the operation, including an American citizen. Well, as the operation began, Israeli military vehicles were seen driving along a road from the coast towards Nuseirat camp. Video footage from Al Jazeera shows damage to buildings along this route. The fighting and destruction is most visible near the Nuseirat market. Reports suggest it was near here that the hostages were found. Later video shows one of the hostages, Noah Argamani, being evacuated in a helicopter from near the U.S. aid pier. All 4 hostages have now been taken to Tel Aviv, where they are recovering in hospital. But there are splits in the government about the path forward. Our international correspondent Alex Rossi reports, and we start with new pictures of that dramatic rescue.
The dramatic rescue operation from Gaza has been rare good news for Israel's military and political leadership in a war which appears bogged down. But the splits over how to bring the hostages home and what happens in Gaza when the fighting stops is now overshadowing the rescue operation. After delivering an ultimatum, opposition leader Benny Gantz dramatically resigned from the war cabinet, unhappy about Benjamin Netanyahu's lack of a plan.
Unfortunately, Netanyahu prevents us from progressing to the real victory, which is the justification for the painful and ongoing price. That is why we're leaving the war cabinet today. With a heavy heart, but with a whole heart, we present ourselves today for the battle for the state of Israel for generations to come.
The euphoria over the rescue of the hostages is already starting to wane. It's given way to a grim reality that there are still 120 being held inside Gaza. And with no obvious prospect of a ceasefire, there's a sense time is running out for those still alive.
She's my young girl. She's my baby. I want her to be home, and I'm very afraid.
Simona Steinbrecker's 21-year-old daughter was kidnapped on October the 7th. She told me a ceasefire cannot come soon enough. What's your reaction to the release of the 4 hostages?
First of all, I'm very happy that they go back to their family, but still we have 120 hostages there, and they all came just only with the deal.
It won't be another rescue?
No.
Israel's international isolation is also growing as the bloodshed continues. In Gaza, they are still mourning the dead. Officials say hundreds of civilians were killed and injured in the crossfire during the hostage rescue. Many were women and children. In the midst of such horror, it may well complicate the chance of bringing about any kind of halt to the violence. Alex Rossi, Sky News, Tel Aviv.
The Work and Pension Secretary has insisted that Rishi Sunak will lead the Conservatives into the election amid fury at the Prime Minister's early departure from D-Day commemorations. With the PM keeping quiet, Labour are capitalising, announcing new policies on prisons and antisocial behaviour. But questions around how both parties will fund their pledges remain, as Serena Barker-Singh now explains.
Getting out and about in an election is usually the norm for party leaders. For Keir Starmer, this was today in Thurrock, announcing the latest on his plans to crack down on antisocial behaviour.
So what have we got here?
For the Prime Minister, a very different approach. No interviews, no media access really for almost 24 hours. Only this, photographs sent to us to prove he was indeed door-knocking in Yorkshire this morning. And a minister sent out to explain the decision to leave a D-Day ceremony early.
The Prime Minister has accepted that he made a mistake. He has apologised unequivocally for that. And I think he will be feeling this personally very deeply because he's a deeply patriotic person.
Is he going to lead you into this election?
There should be, absolutely. And there should be no question of anything other than that.
By the afternoon, we got a promise from the party chairman.
The Prime Minister will be out on the road, I'm sure, over the next few days, fighting for every vote right across the country.
Though no question, too, the deep divisions in his party.
I'm very struck by the change in conversation since the D-Day thing, which is probably the biggest gaffe I can remember in politics.
I'm not sure we expected the Tories to evidence that chaos and division every day of the campaign.
Labour are all too happy to reiterate their attack line on the Conservatives. Tax rises are what they have had to defend in turn.
Now, the IFS say politicians need to be honest about whether it's cuts to public services or tax rises. So I'm just wondering if you think you're being honest.
Well, let me be absolutely clear. We will not raise tax for working people. So that means we will not raise income tax, national insurance or VAT, because all of our plans are fully costed and fully funded, and none of them require tax rises over and above the ones that we've already announced. But look, we No, we're not going to austerity. I ran a public service for 5 years. We are not returning to austerity. What we want to return to is growth in the economy.
Independent forecasters say growth will have to be miraculous to avoid any hard choices. But some details will have to be revealed next week as manifestos launch. And the promises parties made lurch one step closer to reality. Serena Buck-Singh, Sky News.
And let's go live to our chief political correspondent, John Craig, who joins us from Westminster. John, the Prime Minister is going to want to put the D-Day criticisms behind him. Do you think the fact that the parties are publishing their manifestos in the coming week will help?
Well, the Conservative Party chairman tells us that the PM is going to come out of hiding, where he's been most of the weekend, at the beginning of what is going to be Manifestos Week, the launch of the big parties' manifestos. Now, it starts with the Liberal Democrats Monday, after some of the eccentric photo opportunities that we've seen from Sir Ed Davey. They're likely to go big on the crackdown on pollution in rivers, lakes and beaches. Tuesday is the Conservatives. Now, the latest news on the Tory manifesto is a pledge to boost local policing, they say, with 8,000 new fully warranted officers. And they're talking about putting more bobbies on the beat, if you like. Labour have said that this is an empty promise because the Tories have decimated local policing over the past 14 years. Wednesday is the Green Party and Thursday it's the Labour Party. Well, the latest news on the Labour manifesto is that they are proposing to create 3,000 new school-based nurseries to provide childcare for young children, mostly in primary schools. The Tories will say, where's the money coming from for that? It's going to cost a lot more than you're saying. Now, we did hear Sir Keir talk about what Labour are calling a triple lock. No tax rises in income tax, national insurance or VAT. But we can expect to hear a lot more from the Conservatives on that charge that Mr Sunak made in last week's TV debate, the £2,000 tax grab over 5 years. Labour say it's a lie, but we can expect the parties to do battle yet again on tax in a week that's going to be dominated by those manifesto launches.
Our chief political correspondent, John Craig, with the latest from Westminster. John, thank you. The Metropolitan Police have confirmed that a woman in her 40s has sustained life-threatening injuries after a fairground ride malfunctioned in South London. A man in his 40s is also being treated in hospital for potentially life-changing injuries. 4 people were taken to hospital following the incident on Saturday evening, with 2 people, a man in his 50s and a girl who's 11 years old, having been discharged. Okay, let's get the latest sport now from Sky Sports News and Julia.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
Let's rewind slightly to 2018. I just wonder, ahead of that World Cup, what was the feeling like? What was the emotions like?
Obviously, it was a new group in 2018. Gareth was at the start of something in terms of trying to build something. The expectation really was probably just to get out of the group. But no, we played really well in that tournament. We set a good base, a good foundation to enable us to go on this journey that we've been on. It was a great time for me, a time where probably I moved up a level in terms of playing at a top level in football. It was a brilliant tournament. And of course, one that I look back at and I'm really proud of.
Going into this Euros, how do you adapt to maybe that different type of pressure?
Yeah, I think the pressure comes with experience of being in these big matches and done what we've done over the previous years. So, of course, being in a semi-final of a World Cup, a quarter-final of a World Cup, a final of the Euros, that helps. You enable you to have the mental capacity to deal with the pressures. So, yeah, of course, and obviously the talented squad that we've got, many options that we have, also helps that too.
And just to touch on Gareth there, you mentioned what he was trying to build at the start and what he has built since. Did he do anything specifically at the start to really bring that group together?
We knew how important it was to bring the group together, make everybody enjoy the camp, make everybody want to come and be an England player and want to come and play for the country, which of course that's the way it should be. I think you've seen over the last 5-6 years how the group's grown and I think everybody who comes into the England camps, whether the new players or old players, I think they all go away and they can say that they've felt welcomed, and that's really important to make sure that they feel comfortable off the field, to make sure that they feel comfortable on the field.
You mentioned the mental capacity you and the team need. I just wonder, how do you deal with that pressure?
To play at the top level, you need to be strong mentally. During a career, there's going to be many ups, many downs. Nothing's always happy and smooth.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
A 100-year-old World War II veteran has tied the knot with his bride in a wedding to remember near Normandy's D-Day beaches. Harold Terrens, a U.S. Army Air Force veteran, called it the best day of my life as he married 96-year-old Jean Swerlin on Saturday. The pair were then joined for dinner by the President of France and of the U.S. Emma Birchley reports.
I will always love you, mimed the bride to her sweetheart. Jean was about to tie the knot with an older man.